Hi, you're listening to the My Body, My Story podcast.
The little kiddies play, like the little girls will act as their parents at play school, and often they will act dieting behaviours, and they'll say to their friends in home corner, "Oh, I can't eat that, that'll make me fat, I'm on a diet," or whatever. And they're 3 years old.
This is the 45 over 45 chapter where we celebrate rule breakers and role models, the women who inspire us to live life our way and to show their sensuality, beauty, soul, and true essence. Here, we talk about what it's like to be 45 plus, adjusting to the changes that come with time, and we listen to the stories of our participants. If you have an interesting story, we'd love for you to participate. You can email us at info@alexandrawalker.com. That's Alexandra spelt with a K-S. Or visit our website, alexandrawalker.com.
Hi everyone, and welcome to My Body, My Story project. And today with us, Kim in the studio. Hi Kim, welcome to the studio.
Hi.
And while she's sitting in the makeup chair and Citra is doing makeup for her, I'll be asking her a few questions. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay, I do look and sound Australian, but I was actually born in New Zealand. My mum travelled there and met my dad, and they got married, and we were only there for 4 years. So my mum had 3 kids, my older sister, me and my younger brother, and then they separated and we moved back to Sydney to live with my grandpa in Cronulla.
Wow, that's a nice area.
And second fact is that I've always had chickens for pets. So when I was growing up, my mum always had chickens, and every house I've had chickens because I think they're useful animals, and you feed them and they lay you eggs, which has been very helpful during lockdown.
Oh, so do you live in the house and you have a chicken cage?
Yeah, I always have a chicken coop in the backyard.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, and they're just lovely. The sound of them is lovely, and collecting their eggs is part of my routine, and just having fresh eggs all the time. Mm-hmm. And at the moment I've got Aracuna chickens, which are interesting because they have a blue shelled egg, which is, wow. It's very, very interesting. I have, third fact is that I have 3 kids. So I have 2 children, Harry and Hannah, to Peter, who was my first husband, and then I had another relationship after that relationship ended, and we had another child who's Joshua. Well, the fourth fact, which I've already covered, is that I've been married 2 times, first to Peter, who I'm still good friends with, and then Marty is my current husband. I'm 53 years old. So I was born in 1969, the same year that they walked on the moon.
Oh, that's a nice fact.
Yeah. Even though it looks like I am, I've got red hair, but that's not a natural colour. I've actually got dark brown hair naturally. So I'm pretty much 100% grey, but I've been dyeing my hair since I was about 25 years old, the same colour. So I sort of feel natural redheaded. But some ladies get annoyed at me because they say, well, you didn't have to get teased at school. We all got teased at school, and you just have the glory of the red hair when you're adult, but you didn't have to put up with all the teasing when you were young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You escaped that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's odd because I've got blue eyes and the red hair, which is a very, very naturally rare combination. So generally, blue eyes does not go with red hair. I think it's like 0.2% of the 0.02% of the population. So anyway, the next point is that I'm a primary school teacher. I started off as an early childhood teacher, and the wages are very bad. So just recently, I just did an extra year and retrained as a primary teacher, which I've been enjoying. So I grew up in Cronulla, and I didn't grow up with my dad. I didn't see him at all when I was growing up. I think I've had when I was growing up, I had 2 contacts with him. Mm-hmm. So that led to some emotional issues I had when I was younger, of rejection when I was in relationships and things. But I don't have any hard feelings or anything, and Mum did a really good job. And it's interesting, anyway, I won't go into that. But anyway, the next point is I've played chess since I was 4 years old, and I run a chess club at school. And I've been running the chess club for 2 years, and I've been beaten by 1 kid once, so that's pretty good odds. Yeah. And he's in year 6 and he's quite an exceptional chess player, so I'm really good at it. And
so you probably loved this Netflix show.
The Queen's Gambit. Yeah, I did love that. I watched it a lot. Yeah, I thought it was amazing. And then after I saw the movie, I bought the book and read the book as well. Yeah. I have a massive scar on my stomach, which is probably why I won't be wearing any sexual lingerie for the photo shoot, because when I was 2, my appendix ruptured and I got rushed to hospital and I had my appendix out. But it's not a nice little appendix scar like some people have got. It's like a big cut right down my stomach. And I think that's 10 points.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. So, what are you most passionate about?
Sorry, I've lost the spot of where I was up to. Hang on. My kids. So my daughter is 22 and she's studying science at uni. My son Harry, he's 24 and he's a disability support worker and he lives close by. And Joshy, yeah, so I heard someone say once, when you have kids, it's like pulling a little piece of your heart out and putting it on legs. So pretty much every time they succeed, you feel successful, and when they fail, you feel like you've failed somewhat. So luckily for me, all my kids are very happy, successful people, so I feel at peace with them and their choices, and the relationship I have with them is all good.
Yeah, it's important. It's like kind of I know it shouldn't, but it's kind of validate us as mothers, that our kids are all good, and good people. But I think also for those parents who have problems with kids, it's not always 100% our fault as parents.
Definitely not.
Yeah. But it's always nice to have, we call it good kids. Yeah, it's a bit of a...
It is very hard, and a few of my friends have kids and, they can... I mean, my son was, never perfect. He had a few issues when he was growing up too, but it really... I'm quite good at... I feel content that I did everything I could when the kids were little, so I don't feel guilty, really. I don't feel like I... didn't give them enough food, or that I didn't spend enough time with them, or I really have no guilt. So when they make wrong choices, I actually don't take it upon myself and blame myself, whereas a lot of my friends will blame themselves when their kids have issues, and often I'll say to them, well, it's not your fault. That's their choice. They're adult enough now, but they continue to blame themselves for their kids' shortcomings. And I think, well, it's really, they'd love it. And, I have heard someone say once that love covers a multitude of wrongdoings. And I think if you can just love your kids and they feel that love, really, that's all you can do for them. And after that, it's it's up to them.
It's their destiny.
Yeah. Kids definitely number one. And I love dancing. You were talking before about your Chinese dancing, and I thought, I love watching dancing, being part of dancing, going out dancing. So my mum was a folk dance teacher when I was growing up. So we spent a lot of our evenings and weekends going to folk dance festivals and, folk dancing with the old people. And so that's always been something that I've enjoyed. As long as it's not too choreographed, I prefer more free dancing than structured dancing. So still now, me and my girlfriends often will go out on the weekends just so we can get a good dance in. And one of my good girlfriends is a singer in a band, so we'll often go and watch her sing. And just recently, her daughter is also a good singer, so we did a road trip, which was really exciting, down the south coast, and spent the weekend listening to live music, which was amazing, so lots of dancing. And I love going to the beach and swimming in the ocean. And just recently I've discovered a love for gardening, which is something that my mum always did when I was growing up, but I thought was quite boring. But just in the two years ago when COVID started, I found all these amazing fruits on the ground. I've got quite a large backyard, and it used to annoy me. I used to go out there and it was all the big trees were blocking the sun, and I used to say to my husband, the trees are so annoying because they're blocking the sun, and we couldn't get solar panels. And then once I went out the backyard and I found all these beautiful red fruits on the ground. So I Googled the fruits, and I found out there was this rare native tamarind tree.
Oh.
Yeah, and there's only 4 of them left in the wild. Ooh. And I was like, oh my goodness. So I tasted it. It was a very tart fruit, but it's very good for making jam. So I started making jams and chutneys with it. And since then, I've discovered all these other amazing rare trees in my backyard. So the guy that lived at the house before me was a native gardener, and he was the president of the native... it's Glenbrook Native Nursery, and I've been there heaps since because I was sort of following in his legacy a little bit. His name was Evan Weatherhead. So I've Googled him and I've found all these plaques all over the garden. So what I've tried to do is match up the names of the trees with the plaques. So I've discovered about 50 native rainforest trees in the backyard. So I've got a big macadamia nut tree and So I don't know, because I've been living there for 16 years. So my girlfriend always says to me, I don't know how you didn't know these trees were there. And I'm like, I just didn't. I was so busy, working and everything. I didn't go out into the backyard that much. But yeah, so that's been a real joy. So I've spent the whole COVID weeding and moving mulch and researching about the native plants. And my favourite one is the finger lime. I don't know, have you ever seen the finger lime? Because all the Aussie bush tuckers coming back in. And so I've got all these established bush tucker plants already. So the finger lime is like a native citrus, and it's got little caviar-shaped citrus balls inside it. So I've got about 20 of those in my yard. And they actually sell for over $100 a kilo. So that's a bit exciting. I thought when I'm retired, I could go into business selling finger lime or native Australian produce.
Oh wow, what an exciting story. And you should have started like a YouTube channel and, blog about that.
Yeah.
Because it's such an interesting subject.
Yeah, I've been putting a lot on Facebook and I've had a lot of interest, and lots of my friends have come and had garden tours and things like that.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering that if someone wants to, do you have any group or information where they can find you?
The Evan Weatherhead, who's the guy who used to live at the house who planted all the trees, he is members of this native nursery, which is run by volunteer people. So I'll go there. It's only open twice a week, so I go there, and they've actually asked me if they could do a garden tour, and I've said yes. So yeah.
That's
interesting.
And you mentioned before we spoke that you live in Blue Mountains.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
So it's
in
all there.
Blaxland. Yeah, it's a really big yucca. So pretty much I've got a mini rainforest in my backyard with like all these rare Australian trees. And one of them is like critically endangered in New South Wales. So,
wow, what an interesting story!
Yeah, because I think what happens is people build houses and they just knock all the native trees down, whereas Evan, because he was so conscious, he's planted all these amazing trees.
So you just bought house from him?
Well, he had passed away, so we bought the house from his wife.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's
and he was very passionate. There's lots of stuff on the internet about him, and he's written all these articles for native magazines and stuff. So yeah, it's been and I feel a little bit like I would like to carry his legacy on. So both of my neighbours have told me about him and said that I used to always have garden tours and people would always be walking through the garden and that sort of thing. So yeah.
That's interesting.
And then I went to the native nursery, and the gates have got a plaque there because the gates have been named after him too. So,
Wow, I love this story.
Oh, thank you. So I feel very blessed actually, and I feel every time I sort of garden, I find a new plant, I sort of look up to the skies and I go, "Oh, thanks Evan for planting that plant." Like 30 years ago. Now I'm reaping the benefits of his hard work, pretty much.
Excellent. So let's move to our age. And what positive change have you noticed in the experience with this age, turning 45 plus?
Well, there's a few things. I think when you're younger, you're quite hard on yourself if you make a mistake, and you can be quite embarrassed if you do the wrong thing or if you say the wrong thing. And as an adult, I'm much more easy with myself, and I just will laugh, or if I fall over, I'll think it's funny, or if I say the wrong thing, I don't dwell on it and think, oh, I should have done it this way. I'm just much more self-accepting. And I have learnt to be more assertive. I'm naturally quite a peacemaker by nature, and if someone says, what do you do? I'll say, what do you want to do? So I've learnt to actually find out how to be more assertive, especially in my marriage relationships, and with my children too. My daughter's quite she's got a very strong personality, and we did clash when she was a teenager. I think there's a stage when your daughter's about 13 where they become their own people, and it can be quite hard. So I've learned to be more assertive with her, but she's the hardest person I find to be assertive with for some reason.
So what is the biggest challenge at the moment related to the age?
Yes, so relating to the age. Well, do you know what? I think it's getting closer to the knowledge that you're getting closer to dying. Okay, so I found myself in the last few months counting how many years I've got left and thinking of all the things that I want to do before that happens. So just recently I've bought a house at the beach. Now I've always wanted to live at the beach, but because I'm thinking, okay, I've got 5 years I have to until I can move there, and I'm thinking, well, that only leaves me maybe 20 years that I can actually live there, and then, That's sort of a sobering sort of thought. So when I was young, I sort of always had an extrinsic fear of death. And I remember when I was young, I'd go to my mum's room and I'd say, oh, Mum, what's going to happen when I die? And I always wanted her to say, you know, there's a heaven or something lovely is going to happen. But she'd always tell me that, no, I don't know and there's nothing I can tell you. So it never really satisfied my fear. So, yeah, anyway, so I think, yeah, that's something that makes me feel scared at this age because you're getting closer to the inevitable death. Yeah. And I love life and I think, I don't like the thought of it ending and how can the world go on without me in it.
Yeah, I think it's the biggest fear of all, you know, the fear of death.
But some people don't seem to care. Like I ask my husband sometimes, do you? And he just says, well, you just have to accept that that's just part of life.
But it doesn't mean that he is not afraid of that. He has to be brave in front of you.
I don't know. See, my oldest son, Harry, he was always the same as me. He was always scared of death, whereas my daughter never has ever mentioned it to me. Like Harry'd be like I was with my mum. He'd be like, Mum, what's going to happen when I die? But at that stage, I was religious and I could say, well, there is a heaven because I did become a Christian for a while, I think, because of that fear of death. And I said to Harry, well, there's a heaven and, you know, life eternally and it's going to be beautiful and blissful. But even now, he's a much more spiritual person than the other kids, so... And Joshy, I've asked Josh, my youngest son, and he doesn't seem to care about it either. And Hannah's not overly, she believes in God, so she's not overly concerned about it either. So I think some people have more of a fear of it than others, I think.
Some people just think about it more.
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
Okay.
And often I will think about it as I'm going to sleep, and it's a thing, and I think, well, what's going to happen when I die, and all that sort of stuff. So it can keep me awake at night.
You can do this like the Queen Elizabeth, to plan your funeral. You will know exactly what will happen.
What does she do?
They do plan their funeral, and they even do rehearsal of her funerals. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So she knows exactly, minute by minute, what will happen. Even the Prince Philip, when he died, they told during the translation of his funeral ceremony, they were saying like, this piece was planned by Prince Philip himself, so he knew what will happen. Minute by minute.
Yeah, that would probably be helpful. And I know already my mum has bought her funeral plot for us, so she's already paid for her whole funeral, and because she's very environmentally friendly, so she's bought all the environmentally friendly things that she could possibly buy for her funeral, so which is very nice of her. So we won't have to pay for any of that. But I was thinking too. So my mum has a real zest for life. Even now, she's nearly 80, and she's still. Swims in the ocean and goes for bike rides and goes for walks and does folk dancing. And I think, she has that real zest for life. Whereas my husband's mum, at the end of her life, she just wanted to die. She had no desire to live at all. She came and stayed with us and she just said, I just want to die. And I'm like, oh, I couldn't understand it because I don't think I'll ever have that thought.
Very sad, yeah. So it's not the final, but so far, what is your greatest accomplishment?
Okay, so my greatest accomplishment would be the kids and how amazing they are. And I just think, buying the beach house financially was a good accomplishment. So we've got a few rental properties, which makes life a lot easier at the moment. Although the interest rates are going up and that's not great, but anyways. And I feel accomplished that I've got a very happy marriage at the moment. It was... my first marriage, although if I was a different person, it might be different, but because I wasn't very assertive in that marriage, I was very passive and my husband was very assertive, borderline aggressive. Hopefully he doesn't listen to it. But that was the hardest thing I ever did, was getting out of that marriage, because I had kids and I thought I was ruining their life, and I was not happy. I was married for 13 years and I was not happy for the entire 13 years. So getting out of that marriage was my biggest accomplishment. And having a happy marriage now is also a big accomplishment. I feel free in my marriage now. I feel that, he values my opinion. I have freedom, He massages my feet pretty much most nights.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, he's a real sweetheart. And he's just very, very loving and kind. Yeah, so it's just nice to be in a nice place where you don't feel like you have to, how are you going to get out of this all the time?
And if you could meet your 30-year-old self and give her advice, what it would be?
Well, it has to do with the gardening, because I think if I had known 30 years ago I'd have this amazing garden, I would have planted some more trees so I could get the fruits off it now.
Okay.
So I think if he planted little trees 30 years ago, by now in my 50s I'd be well and truly, self-sufficient in getting all the native fruits off them.
Yeah.
I would probably have moved to the beach when I was 30. And I just think probably speaking up for myself a little bit more. And the last thing I had financially, I'd buy some Bitcoin and get some Apple shares. And it's interesting because when my son was telling me the other day, my 24-year-old Harry, him and his friend used to play Xbox when they were 13, and they had Bitcoins, like multiple Bitcoins that they used to buy things off the computer with. And I'm like, if I had known that, I would have said to him, maybe just save a couple of those Bitcoins for yourself for when you're a bit older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give younger women who will eventually reach this age and undergo age changes, but at the moment they're young? And in advance, what would you tell them?
Well, it's interesting because obviously my daughter and I, we spoke about this and we talked about this question. And I feel proud of my daughter because you see the young children today and they're very into to not just makeup, but having their lips done and having their eyelashes extended and having their boobs done and I just think it's really such a waste, in my opinion, to have all of that artificial enhancements, and really they're not worrying about their personalities or their spirituality or their finances or anything like that. It just seems to be so, because of Instagram and social media and all those things, it seems to be so focused on image. People are forgetting about the other important things. So I would just say to them that beauty comes from within, and acts of kindness make everyone beautiful. And you can't change yourself, but you can't change others around you. You can only change yourself. And I'm not talking about that in a physical way. I'm talking about that in a social, emotional way.
Work with yourself, yeah.
Yeah, and don't spend so much time on how you look.
And you nicely lead it to the next question about the idea of the perfect body image. So where do you think it comes from, and what it is for you, your perfect body?
Yeah. Okay. So I'd say where I think the image comes from to start off with, and I've seen a lot of this at school with the young girls, and even at preschool, the little kiddies play, like the little girls will act as their parents at play school, and often they will act dieting behaviours, and they'll say to their friends in home corner, "Oh, I can't eat that, that'll make me fat, I'm on a diet," or whatever. And I think, and they're 3 years old and they're pretending to be on a diet. And I remember when I saw it, I was shocked. And even the other day we did an activity at school and the girls had to stand, they're 6th class girls, and they had to stand on the scales. And 3 of them ended up I had no idea this would happen, and it really shocked me, but 3 of them were in the corner crying. And I said, "What's up?" And she said, "I can't believe I'm 50 kilos. And I was like, "Well, that's okay." And she's like, "No, I'm fat. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." So I thought, oh, geez, there's 3 kids over here crying because they weigh 50 kilos. And I was like, oh my gosh, these girls are 12, 11 years old. And I thought, that's not okay. And the other thing I thought too, recently, a friend of mine, she has a teenager, and the teenager went to a family member, and the family member has said to this girl, "Oh, you better stop eating that, you're getting fat," or something to that. So anyway, this girl has always been very confident in her body, and she comes home and first thing she does, stands on the scales and says, "Mum, I'm going on a diet." And the mum says to her, "Why are you doing that?" And she said, "Because this person told me I was getting fat." And obviously this mum is really annoyed at this family member and has rang her and said, "How dare you say that to my daughter?" But obviously that's where the image, what your parents say to you has such an impact, and the way they are in themselves too. And if they're always going, "Oh my God, I've got a fat bum," or, I'm on this diet or that diet, then that's what you're role modelling to your kids, that, that's having a fat bum's unacceptable, or being a little bit overweight is not okay. And then, that's why there's so many anorexias and bulimias and all those sorts of things.
And what it would be for you, your perfect body? What do you think it should be?
Well, a perfect body I just think feeling fit and strong is a perfect body, and not having pains and aches.
Agreed. Okay, so what does it mean to you feeling good and looking good, and what comes first?
Okay, so having confidence makes you feel good. Yeah. And and this is the other thing I do appreciate about my daughter, is that she's a very confident person, and her confidence has nothing to do with the way she looks. And she said to me the other day, she said, it annoys me sometimes when you say, why don't you go put some makeup on? Because it doesn't matter to her. Yeah. And she's very popular, she's got lots of friends. So I think, well, good for her. And, she's a lot of her friends are having the lip implants and the eyelashes. And she's like, I would never do that, Mum, because she doesn't, her confidence does not come from her outer beauty, it comes from her inner beauty. And I just think eating healthy and exercising, I think feeling good, and surrounding yourself with positive people that, I have asked a few of my friends about this, and like my sister and another girlfriend, Joanna, and Joanna's like, well, I've got heaps of good photos at home where I look like myself, I don't need, and not that's the reason why I'm doing it, but I just think it's interesting, I just think it's interesting to, that's a confusing question for me, so I don't have an answer for that one.
Okay, let's move to a simpler question. What makes you feel the most beautiful?
Swimming in the ocean and being in the garden or going for a bushwalk, Just being in nature makes me feel beautiful.
So when you do things you love, it makes you feel beautiful.
Yes, definitely, yeah.
And my last question is, what is your favorite quote about being a woman?
Okay, so I did spend a little time looking for this one, and a lot of the women ones were all about being a strong woman and those sorts of quotes. But the ones that resonated with me was this one was just a quote. It didn't have from anyone in particular, but it said, a good heart keeps you beautiful forever. And another one was a Mother Teresa one, and it said, peace begins with a smile. And then I always think, and there's two things. Often when the kids are having issues at school, I remind them of the Frozen song, Let It Go. And so often in me, I have to tell myself to let it go because I can't control everything. So I just think letting things go really helps with anxiety and fears. And the other thing I often will say to the kids at school is just, the Taylor Swift thing, just shake it off. Sometimes you can't dwell on things forever. You just got to shake these things off and move on. So they would be my inspirational quotes.
Oh, it's really nice. Thank you, Kim. Thank you very much for sharing your story and answering our questions. And I hope you will enjoy the rest of the day and your photo shoot. And welcome to the project again.
Thank you, Alexandra. I've really enjoyed it so far.
If you have an interesting story, we'd love for you to participate. You can email us at info@alexandrawalker.com. That's Alexandra spelt with a KS. Or visit our website, alexandrawalker.com.